What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. We've got a lot to get through this week. In case you missed it, I had a live last Monday. I think it was sometime Monday afternoon, where that was kind of last week's episode. Went over some of the free agent signings for Washington. So I'm not going to go into them that much, or the ones I talked about last. I'm not going to go into them that much, but I mean, Adam Peters has been busy. He has acquired a lot of players and some draft capital as well as, of course, the big news with Sam Howell getting traded. I'm going to give my thoughts on that a little bit later. And wrapping things all up, I'm going to talk about my post-free agency mock draft, which you can read on the Right Way Sports Network, where I'm just going to go over who I chose for Washington with the second overall pick and some trades that I had and some scenarios I think could possibly happen. Just based on some trends recently that that have kind of taken place in the draft process world. So we'll start with the signings. Washington signing, I don't know, I think it's like 15 free agents right now. A lot of players on the move for Washington, but Washington as well acquiring a lot of players. It's a complete retool, as Dan Quinn wanted to call it, a complete just change in the roster from what we saw last year to now this year. We'll start with some of the bigger names. I think I talked about this one a little bit when I was on the live last week, but Dorrance Armstrong, defensive end pass rusher from the Dallas Cowboys, probably one of the more obvious signings. I kind of predicted this one. 3 years, $33 million, $11 million average annual value, $22.1 million guaranteed, and $16.1 million guaranteed at signing. His 2024 cap hit will be $4.8 million. And pretty much his entire contract, the cap hit's going to go up every year. So less than $5 million for the cap hit for Dorrance Armstrong. 3 years, $22 million. I think that's a little bit rich than what I expected him to get probably. But then again, he's only 26, and there's a lot of guaranteed money in that contract, but then there's also a lot of bonuses. Pretty much a third of it is just bonuses and incentives. So 3 years, $33 million max value for Armstrong. I like the signing. I think it's great. We need pass rush help. So great move from Peters. Next one, another Dallas Cowboy, Tyler Biadasz. This one I also think I talked about on last week's live, but another player, only 26 years old, coming from Dallas, starting center there. He's kind of been a little bit up and down. He had a great year in 2022, I believe, and kind of wasn't one of his best years last year. So kind of got him on a little bit of a cheaper price, but I would say that is kind of another pretty expensive one. It's 3 years, $29 million, $9 million average annual value, and $20 million guaranteed, cap hit of $4.1 million. So these two players getting the two largest cap hits now for Washington, I believe. That's not the quarterback that I'll get to later, and then some other play, but kind of just of the role players that we signed, the starters that we signed, these two guys had some pretty large cap hits, which again, looking at it in perspective, these aren't large cap hits. Both of these under $5 million. It's going to go up, and Washington will most likely cut some of them if they don't perform to the level Washington wants them to perform at, starter level players like for Armstrong, for Biadasz. But and then again, we'll see. So I like both of these signings. Washington gets its center, and Tyler Biadasz, is going to be one of their starters at pass rusher, Dorrance Armstrong. Another signing I loved was one that came a little bit later on. I believe it came on that night, Monday night, I want to say. Frankie Louvu, the linebacker from Carolina. The Panthers, Washington signed two former Panthers, actually. Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chin, two of my favorite signings so far during this free agency process. Louvu is only 27. Chin is only 26 years old. He just turned 26. So two more young players, two more with contracts that will expire before they hit 30 years old, or when they hit 30 years old. So Louvu, 3 years, $31 million, $10 million average annual value, and total guaranteed at $19.1 million. Cap hit under $4 million, just under $4 million at 3.865. So Louvu, another cheap contract. We saw, in case you don't know who Frankie Louvu is, he's a great pass rusher at off-ball linebacker. He's one of the best in the entire NFL. Rushing the passer. His coverage skills are okay. It's nothing really special. He has his ups and downs in coverage, but I like the pass rush that he can bring. And then for Jeremy Chin, again, Washington needing a safety because Cam Curl hit the open market, and Cam Curl signed a very cheap deal with the Los Angeles Rams for 2 years and 8.75 million. I believe it was only like 6 million guaranteed or 5 million guaranteed. Very, very cheap deal to go to Los Angeles. But I mean, again, not what I expected for Cam Curl, a guy who many people believed was going to get 17, 18 million. I know his dad was tweeting saying he should get 20 million. Again, great move by Washington, not franchise tagging him. The tag would have been 17.1 million. And instead, they let him hit the open market, and they got a guy where many people compared Jeremy Chin to Cam Curl. Not really compared, but kind of like the who's better, Jeremy Chin or Cam Curl, those debates back in 2020 and 2021. Jeremy Chin was second in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting in 2020, just behind Chase Young. So this is a playmaker. He's had some injury issues over the last few years and kind of just scheme issues in Carolina. It's been kind of just a crazy last few years if you were a Carolina Panther. But Jeremy Chin to Washington on a 1-year, $4.1 million deal. He's got 3.4 of it guaranteed. 3.9 is the cap hit for this year, so very cheap deal. And low risk deal, only a 1-year deal for Chin as well. He seems really happy for it. He's been posting like jersey swaps of him on his Instagram. I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table in Washington because I mean these are two playmakers. Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin, two playmakers that can make explosive plays. And Chin is now going to be next to Derek Forrest at safety, with Quan Martin kind of rotating in and playing nickel a little bit as well. So I like those three as our safeties. We also brought back Jeremy Reeves, of course. Can't forget about him. 2 years, $6 million. It's about a $2 million cap hit this year and only 1 year guaranteed. So I believe only 1 year guaranteed. So it's a cheap deal for Jeremy Reeves, but again, this guy's been now on Washington's team for 3 different head coaches. Just kind of says who he is as a person. He's now back with Tress Way and Baby 5 as well. So great reunion there for Reeves. Moving on, we talked about some of the Cowboys, some of the Panthers. Another guy, I think Reeves was the only player that Washington brought. Oh, 2 more players Washington brought back. F.A. Obata. He's 32 years or about to be 32 years old before the start of the season. He's kind of on the older side at pass rusher, but I really liked his versatility across the defensive line. He was out for the season with a season-ending injury, but if he was probably one of the players that I would expect to return. Jamison Crowder was a little bit surprising to me. I didn't think he was going to return, but I guess Dan Quinn and Larry Izzo want him back as a punt returner, kick returner person. So no more Antonio Gibson on this team. He's now in New York, and same with Jacoby Brissett. So Jamison Crowder back in the burgundy and gold for what is it, like probably his 8th or 9th season now. So that's pretty big. Moving on to some more defensive linemen. Again, Washington was building up the trenches. Cleveland Farrell coming over from San Francisco on a 1-year deal. You have Dante Fowler coming over from Dallas. I believe that's a 1-year deal, maybe. They don't. I'm looking at Spotrac right now, but it doesn't really say how long his deal is. But he's coming over from Dallas, so both getting Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, and Tyler Biotish all coming over following Dan Quinn from Dallas. Anthony Pittman at linebacker, more of a special teams guy, coming over from Detroit. Bobby Wagner was a big one. Coming over from Seattle, probably he was one of the more expensive contracts. A 1-year, $8.5 million deal. I believe most of that is guaranteed as well. So Bobby Wagner, another great pass rusher, off-ball linebacker. That's kind of the plan it's looking like for Dan Quinn. Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, both those guys. That's going to be there's going to be some very creative blitz packages with both of those guys at linebacker. The coverage I'm a little bit concerned with, as Bobby Wagner. I know he was a second-team All-Pro last year. I don't think he should have gotten it. I think there was definitely some snubs in that linebacker selection process. But again, Wagner, he still performs, in my opinion, at an above-average level, especially in the pass rush. I think some of these blitz packages are going to be pretty amazing from what Dan Quinn can dial up for Washington, especially on like third down situations. But again, in coverage, I'm just a little bit concerned with what we're doing slightly. But is this an upgrade from David Mayo and Cody Barton? 100%. So we were having coverage problems before too, so that it's really that. Nick Allegretti coming over from Kansas City. We had Andrew Wiley come over last year from Kansas City. It seems like right now he's going to be the starting right tackle on this team. But Nick Allegretti, a guard, 27 years old, coming over on a 3-year deal. 3-year deal worth $16 million. $9 million of that is guaranteed, and a cap hit of $3.5 million. I like this deal. I think it's kind of a low risk or low to medium risk, and then kind of like a medium reward, medium to high reward a little bit. It sounds like he's going to be the starting left guard. He played with I believe a torn UCL in the Super Bowl. He tore his UCL in the second quarter, and he played through it. The Chiefs end up winning the Super Bowl, and he's a Super Bowl champion. So that just shows the type of fighter he is on the field, and that's a guy I want on my football team. So Nick Allegretti, I'm excited for. It sounds like he's going to be the starting left guard for Washington. We'll wait and see on that. But I do want to mention, someone sent me this, but Sam Cosmi is listed as a tackle now on the Washington website. That'll be interesting to watch and see how that unfolds. But I wouldn't think of much of it right now. Some more kind of like big name signings: Marcus Mariota coming over from Philadelphia. We'll get more into that in a little bit with Sam Howell and that situation, because I have my thoughts on that. And then Austin Eckler coming over from Los Angeles on a 2-year, $8.3 million deal. Only the first year really is guaranteed for Austin Eckler. Some money in the second year, but Washington can get out of it after the first year. Eckler, again, he's on the older side, almost 29 years old now, going into his year 7 season, I believe, or something like that. So we'll see what happens. I think it's a good 1-2 punch, though. Brian Robinson as the power back, and then Austin Eckler as your third down receiving back. Because I thought Brian Robinson, he's definitely improved on that from his days at Alabama, because he did not do that at all at Alabama, and he's turned out to be a pretty solid back out of like a receiving weapon out of the backfield. But Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury want more, and Austin Eckler now is in Washington, so just got to deal with it. I think that's almost everyone, though. Brandon McManus is the new kicker for Washington, coming over from Jacksonville. McManus would not be the guy I would have chosen. I would have chosen Nick Folk, because it does sound like Washington moved on from Joey Sly, who's a free agent. I would have picked Nick Folk because he had a great year last year. I think he went to Tennessee now. I forgot where he was last year. Maybe he was at Tennessee last year too. But I would have picked Nick Folk. It's Brandon McManus, though. He's pretty solid from anywhere within 40 yards, but beyond that, he kind of struggled last year. And then a guy that Washington signed today, actually, this morning, as I'm recording this, a 24-year-old Noah Igbinoghene, coming over from Dallas, was a former first-round pick back in 2020, I believe, for the Miami Dolphins. He's a corner. Washington right now, we're sitting at one of the bigger positions of needs is the cornerback position. You look at Emmanuel Forbes, you look at Quan Martin, Benjamin St-Juste. Washington doesn't really have a cornerback one right now, a CB1 right now, and Noah Igbinoghene is not going to be your CB1. Okay, so it's the contract details aren't out yet on Igbinoghene, but I think he's more of a special teamer. It's looking like, again, he's only 24 years old, and so what's the trend basically? What's the trend with all of these guys? We look at Cleveland Farrell, Noah Igbinoghene, I believe Dante Fowler is also in this category as well. But what's the trend here? The trend is that Adam Peters loves former first-round picks that have failed with their original team. You look at the players that he's brought in so far. Cleveland Farrell, former first-round pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. Former top 4 selection, I believe. Top 4 or top 3 selection for the Las Vegas Raiders. Did not pan out. Farrell, I believe, bounced around a little bit before ending up in San Francisco, which Adam Peters brought him to, and then now is Adam Peters brought him to Washington as well. Noah Igbinoghene, former first-round pick for the Dolphins, and is now in Washington. You look at what Adam Peters did in San Francisco with Chase Young. Chase Young was struggling in Washington, a former top 2 selection, and Adam Peters decides to trade for him. So that's kind of the trend I've noticed, which is good for it, and then there's not so great things for it too. The good part of it is that like all these first round picks. These first round picks are drafted for a reason. It's because they're probably going to be athletic. They probably have good size, and they're probably like talented athleticism. They probably got a lot of athleticism. So Adam Peters likes athletes. Look at Cleveland Farrell. He likes athletes. Chase Young. These guys are athletes coming out of college. Now, the development wise, they didn't put it all together. Farrell, Young, Igbenogany, they didn't put it all together, but you have the athletic traits to develop, and when you are given the athletic traits, it's on you to develop the player into with their technique and everything as the coach, and that's kind of what he's done so far. So some of the other guys that Washington moved on from: Sadiq Charles, the former starting left guard for Washington, only 24 years old, going to Tennessee on a 1-year deal. Antonio Gibson, I already mentioned, is going to New England, and same with Jacoby Brissett. Brissett will be looking to be the starter there in 2024. Kendall Fuller is going to Miami, which was a little bit interesting, a 2-year, $16.5 million deal for him. I already mentioned Cam Curl, who's going to go to Los Angeles. Cody Barton is now a Denver Bronco, and Curtis Samuel, who was one of the players that I was wondering maybe Washington does bring him back because he kind of brought a spark to this offense last year, but Curtis Samuel is going to Buffalo on a 3-year deal over there. So those are the players that have moved on for Washington. Of course, there's a ton others who haven't signed the deal yet. James Smith-Williams is currently a free agent. Looking through the names: Byron Pringle, Joey Slye, David Mayo, Tyler Larson, Khaleke Hudson, Cornelius Lucas, Nick Gates, Logan Thomas. All those guys haven't signed a contract yet. Same with Charles Leno too, but I believe he's injured right now, so not sure if he's going to be able to sign right now. But that's kind of everyone in terms of free agency wise, everything that went down. That was a bunch of stuff. But then the big news came, and that news came on Wednesday, I believe it was Wednesday. Thursday, maybe? I think it was Thursday, actually. The big news came on Thursday when the Washington Commanders traded their 2023 starting quarterback away to the Seattle Seahawks. It was Sam Howell, a 4th-round draft pick, which was pick 102. That was their own 4th-round draft pick. A 6th-rounder, which was pick 179, in exchange for pick 78. So Washington moves up. What is this? Can I do some math? 24 spots, I believe. Yeah, Washington moves up 24 spots from the 4th round to the 3rd round, and a 5th-round pick, 152, where Washington moves up 27 spots from 179 to 152. So, yeah, Sam Howell, now a Seattle Seahawk. You do some math, you use Jimmy Johnson's draft trade calculator stuff, all that. It basically comes out to be an early 4th-round pick, maybe a late 3rd-round pick with these swaps and everything. So, basically, it was a early 4th-round pick for Sam Howell, or late 3rd-round pick, based on what calculator you're looking at. Sam Howell, former 5th-round pick for Washington. 2022, Washington decided to trade up for him, or trade back, actually. They traded back twice, I believe, to end up drafting Sam Howell with their first pick in the 5th round. And they end up netting basically an early 4th-rounder for him after he was a starter for a year. So Sam Howell, I mean, he was a player. He gave everything he had for the Burgundy and Gold. You can't deny that. It was just put in an unfortunate situation with Ron Rivera. It was all set up to fail for him from the beginning of the year. There were times when he made Washington fans think, is this kid the future? Only 23 years old. Is this kid the future? I remember the Ravens game was pretty good when he was in there for a little bit at the beginning, at the preseason. You had the Patriots game where he looked good as well. There was times this season where he looked good. The Seattle game, which now that's where he is. He's now a Seattle Seahawk. But ultimately, new regime, and they elect to trade him. Is this the right move for Washington? I originally I looked at it. I think it was originally. Now here's where I am now, 4 days later, or 3 days. What is this? 4 days later. Here's where I am 4 days later. Washington decided to trade Sam Howell, which is fine. It really looks like now all the people are saying, "Oh, Washington's not going to pick a quarterback with the second overall pick," or yada yada yada. Washington's going to pick a quarterback with the second overall pick. Why did they trade Sam Howell? I mean, is this because of Drake May? They don't want that dynamic, that UNC dynamic, the two best friends in the same quarterback room competing. You can decide that yourself. But I felt like with the new regime, Sam Howell's just not the way they wanted to go. Now, I think what was really interesting is that Sam Howell, who I believe is a solid quarterback, maybe a borderline starter in the league right now. I don't know if he is. I don't think he is a starter in the league, but I would say he's like a higher end backup. You decide to replace him with Marcus Mariota. That's where things get me a little bit. The trade alone, I think Washington's fine. You move up in the draft like 40 or 50 spots total, including moving up to the middle of the third round. I think that's fine. I think that's awesome for Sam Howell, and for the value that he has. You look at other trades like what the Steelers got for Kenny Pickett, what the Bears got for Justin Fields. Adam Peters got more for Sam Howell than both of those trades. It just shows you like what teams think of Sam Howell and what the Seahawks thought of Sam Howell. So, yeah. But looking at it now, what are we doing with Marcus Mariota? Is Marcus Mariota a better backup than Sam Howell? I don't think so, and that worries me a little bit. If your starting rookie quarterback goes down at some point in the season, you got to bring in your backup. I would have rather brought in Sam Howell than Marcus Mariota. We've seen what Marcus Mariota is. We've seen it Tennessee. We've seen it in Tennessee. We've seen it in Philadelphia. Has he been on another team? I don't really know right now, but we've seen what he brings. Like, it's nothing special. It's nothing special. And now people might say, "Oh, Marcus Mariota, he's a mobile quarterback." Yada yada yada. I think this is a good segment actually to my next segment, because people say, "Oh, Marcus Mariota, he's a mobile quarterback." Does that mean Washington's selecting Jane Daniels? I don't think that means anything. I really don't think that means anything. But yeah, I just don't think that means anything in terms of where they are with the Jane Daniels versus Drake May stuff. Now for my mock draft, which as we transition here to the draft, my draft thoughts, my post-free agency mock draft. I'm going to bring it up right now actually on my phone. But for Washington, I don't think Washington knows who they're selecting with the second overall pick right now. And I'm not going to be hating on them either for not knowing as of right now. You have Jane Daniels on the board. You're going to have Drake May on the board. You're probably not going to have Caleb Williams on the board. I'm not even going to mention J.J. McCarthy, but you have Daniels, you have May. Who's it going to be? I don't think the Mariota. I know some people say, "Oh, wow, well, Mason, like teams want their backup quarterback's playing style to be like their starters," and I get that, but I just don't think that's how Adam Peters is thinking right now with what he's done. So that's what I think of the Sam Howell stuff. In my mock draft for TWSN, you can see that TWSN.net. My post-free agency mock draft is up right now as this episode comes out. I have the Washington Commanders selecting Drake May with the second overall pick. Now the increasing trend and the current favorite to go number 2 is the LSU quarterback, Jane Daniels. I currently have Drake May. I think they'll end up with Drake May eventually in April. How much do I believe they'll end up with Drake May right now? A good 55%. 55% for Drake May, 45% for Jane Daniels. I think right now they're leaning towards Drake May, but again, there's still so much time left. There's still so much time to go. You still have Cliff Kingsbury. You've seen how much he loves mobile quarterbacks. He's always had a mobile quarterback wherever he was, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or Caleb Williams or Kyler Murray. He's always had a mobile quarterback. So there's that. But I have them going Drake May at number 2. Right now he's my QB2 over Daniels. I have him as my QB2. I think he's the better prospect, and Jane Daniels, in my opinion, is just not that great of a passer. And just looking at, I think it's funny how the NFL looks currently at Jane Daniels, and we just saw what Justin Fields went for. He just went for a 6th-round pick. He's like a conditional 6th-round pick. And you're looking at Jane Daniels. NFL teams think Jane Daniels is going to be a top 3 selection. Someone in the top 3 is going to select Jane Daniels. I just think it's funny how they value Justin Fields so low, but then you have Jane Daniels, who's going to be a top 30 pick in this draft. That's all I'm going to say. So, looking at my mock, number 1, Caleb Williams. Number 2, Drake May. Number 3, Jane Daniels to the Patriots. Then it gets kind of crazy. Number 4, the Minnesota Vikings have traded up with the Arizona Cardinals and selected J.J. McCarthy. 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks for my post-free agency mock draft. We've seen what the Vikings have done recently. They've been active in the trade market. They've acquired an extra first-round pick, and I think they are definitely targeting right now trading up for J.J. McCarthy. I think it does ultimately happen. I'm not exactly entirely sure, but I do think the Vikings will end up in selecting someone within the first 7 picks of this draft. I think that is probably most likely what's going to happen. So J.J. McCarthy at 4. Marvin Harrison then falls to the Chargers at 5. Malik Nabers to the Giants at 6. Joe Alt to the Titans at 7. The Cardinals trade back up. So they moved from 4 to 11 to then trade back up from 11 to 8 for Rome Odunze. So the Cardinals used some of their draft capital. It was the 35th pick in the draft and the 138th pick in the draft to move up with trading with the Falcons to move up to 8 and still select Rome Odunze while acquiring an extra first-round pick. Some of the other notable, I guess we'll finish the top 10. Johnny Newton to the Bears at 9 and Cooper DeJean to the Jets at 10. And now some other notable, I'm not going to go through the entire thing. You can check out my article at TWSN. But some of the other notable picks, in my opinion, Bo Nix to the Broncos at number 12. Some of my more popular picks, Nate Wiggins is becoming a pretty common one for me at 15 to the Colts and Jackson Powers Johnson at 16 to the Seahawks. The Bengals trade up for a tight end. The Steelers, some tackles fall. There's a lot of tackles that fall. We have a run of 5 and 6 picks from 20 to 25. A run of 5 tackles and 6 picks. You can go and check out that one. But the Cardinals, basically with their other 2 first-round picks, they go on Marius Mims at 25, Zach Frazier at 27. The Ravens get A.D. Mitchell, and the Chiefs get Brian Thomas. So those are some of the kind of the bigger picks that I have. But those are kind of some of the bigger ones. Now, again, you want to read more, so it's on twsn.net. Now I kind of want to move on to what's next for Washington. Free agency is somewhat to a close now, or kind of died down a little bit for Washington. I still expect them to be active this week. I still expect them to sign probably 1 or 2 more players. At least, I think 1 or 2 more players. I think they're still targeting a top cornerback. There's been rumors about potentially a Greg Newsome trade. I don't think it's going to happen, but I know there's been some rumors about that. And then some other ones about possibly acquiring some other top cornerbacks as well. So I just don't think Greg Newsome will end up being in Washington. I just think the chances are pretty low. I don't really think Cleveland wants to move him right now. But so that's kind of what's next. In terms of the draft, Washington, today is 3/17, 3/18 really. I'm not going to have an episode next week. I do want to say that I won't be here next week, so I won't be in the country next week, actually. So I'm not going to have an episode next week, so the next episode will be in 2 weeks on April 1st. Well, it's April Fool's Day, but it'll be on April 1st, and that will officially be the same month as the NFL draft. Draft season is heating up. I'm probably going to have 1 more mock draft before the actual thing comes out, as this is my post-free agency one. I did a post-combine mock. I did a post-free agency mock. My next one will probably be the real thing. I don't think I'm going to have one until then. It'll probably be the real thing. As you guys know, every year I do a full-on mock draft to go through in-depth on every single selection. I know these I only kind of go through like the first 10 or whatever, but I go through every single selection within that mock, and it happens the Monday before the draft. So I'm excited for that. I'm definitely going to have some more guests on. But yeah, that'll do it. Half-hour pod will come to an end here. Thank you guys for watching or listening to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.